There are moments in life when silence feels heavy, when it presses down on your chest and leaves you wondering, why didn't they say anything? But there are also moments when words, spoken without care, spoken without thought, strike harder than silence ever could. Words can shatter a heart more deeply than silence. Think about it. Silence leaves space for the imagination. It leaves us waiting, questioning, doubting. But words fill that space with something we can never take back. They land like stones thrown into a fragile glass, breaking everything inside us. A single sentence can undo years of love, trust, and dreams. We underestimate the power of what leaves our lips. A casual phrase, a cold response, a truth dropped without mercy, it can cut sharper than a blade. And the wound it leaves, it's invisible. There is no scar on the skin, no bruise for others to see, yet the damage lives deep inside, replaying in the mind, echoing in the soul. I remember a time when one sentence destroyed the warmth of an entire room. The air shifted. The smiles faded. A truth was spoken so carelessly, so directly, and yet so deeply that no silence could have hurt more. Silence would have left me wondering, maybe even hoping. But words closed the door. Words ended the dream. Words drew a line that could never be erased. Have you ever been in that place? When someone you love, someone you trusted, looks into your eyes and says something that changes everything. You stand there frozen, unable to breathe, unable to speak. Because in that instant, the ground beneath you disappears. That's the weight words carry. They don't just communicate thoughts. They carry the power to build or to destroy. And here's the truth, once words are spoken, they cannot be unsaid. You cannot pull them back. You cannot rewrite them. They become part of memory, etched into the heart of the one who received them. And that memory, it lingers. It resurfaces in quiet nights, in moments of reflection, in the middle of laughter, when you suddenly remember the sting of that one sentence. That is why I say, words can shatter a heart more deeply than silence. Because silence leaves room for healing. It gives space for forgiveness, for possibilities. But words, once spoken, leave no space. They are final. They are sharp. They cut to the very center of who we are. But pause for a moment. Let's turn this pain into awareness. If words hold that much power, then they also hold the power to heal, to lift, to inspire. Just as one cruel sentence can break someone, one kind sentence can save them. One gentle word can restore hope to a heart that was ready to give up. One, "I believe in you," can change the entire direction of someone's life. One, "You matter," can pull a person back from the edge of despair. This is why we must be careful. Careful with the words we choose. Careful with the tone we use. Careful with the timing in which we deliver them. Because people may forget what you did, but they will never forget what you said and how your words made them feel. When betrayal comes, it often comes through words. The confession of a secret. The sudden announcement of a hidden truth. The casual dismissal of your worth. But in betrayal, we also learn. We learn that words are not cheap. They carry weight, and that weight can either crush or carry us. If you have ever had your heart shattered by words, you know how heavy they can feel. But I want you to also know, those words do not define you. They may break your trust, they may bruise your spirit, but they cannot erase your worth. They cannot erase your light. They cannot erase the love you carry inside. Yes, words can shatter, but they can also rebuild. And sometimes, the most powerful words are the ones you speak to yourself. In the quiet after heartbreak, when their words replay in your mind, you can choose to whisper back to yourself words of healing. You can say, "I am strong. I am worthy. I will not be broken by this." Pause here. Feel those words. They may not erase the pain immediately, but they begin to stitch the cracks together. They begin to replace the echo of destruction with the melody of resilience. So when I say words can shatter a heart more deeply than silence, I don't say it only as a warning. I say it as a reminder of choice. We can choose what words leave our lips. We can choose what words we repeat in our hearts. And we can choose whether the words spoken to us define us or whether we rise above them. Because even in the midst of brokenness, we still have the power to speak life into ourselves. Trust, such a simple word, yet it carries the weight of entire lives, entire relationships, entire dreams. Trust is not built in a single moment, nor is it something that falls from the sky without effort. It is a fragile bridge, carefully crafted, one piece at a time, with honesty, with consistency, with truth. And once that bridge is broken, once a crack begins to spread through it, it becomes one of the hardest things to repair. Trust is fragile, and it must be honored with truth, not half-truths, not convenient lies, not silence that hides secrets, but truth. Because truth, even when it hurts, has the power to sustain trust. But lies, no matter how small, poison it slowly until one day it collapses without warning. Think about the people who mean the most to you. What ties you to them is not just love, not just blood, not just memories. It is trust. It is knowing that when you speak, they will listen. It is believing that when you fall, they will catch you. It is trusting that when you are at your most vulnerable, they will not betray you. That is what keeps us connected. That is what makes love safe, friendship lasting, family unbreakable. But when that trust is broken, it feels as if the ground disappears beneath you. Suddenly, the world you believed in, the promises you held onto, the certainty you carried in your heart, all of it crumbles. And you are left standing in the ruins, asking yourself, was it all a lie? Was I blind? Did I give too much of myself to someone who never deserved it? Yes, trust is fragile. It is like glass. Transparent, beautiful, priceless. But once shattered, even if you try to piece it back together, the cracks will always remain. And yet, in our hearts, we still yearn for it. We still hope for it. Because without trust, there can be no love, no peace, no true connection. So why do people risk it with lies? Why do they gamble with something so delicate, so irreplaceable? Perhaps it is fear. Perhaps it is selfishness. Perhaps it is the illusion that truth will hurt more than a lie. But here is the secret: lies hurt far more. Lies may delay the pain, but when the truth eventually emerges, and it always does, the wound is twice as deep, because it carries not only betrayal, but also the memory of deception. This is why truth matters, even when it shakes us, even when it makes us cry, even when it risks breaking us. Because truth, no matter how heavy, is the foundation of trust. And when trust stands on truth, it becomes unshakable. Have you ever experienced that moment, when someone looks you in the eyes and finally tells you the truth? It may hurt, yes. It may burn inside your chest. But at least you know. At least you are free from the chains of doubt. At least you can decide where to go next. That is the gift of truth. It clears the fog, even if it shows us a painful reality. Lies, however, keep us blind, wandering in illusions until the day we crash into a wall we never saw coming. Trust is fragile. That is why it must be honored. Not with grand gestures, not with dramatic promises, but with small, everyday truths, with honesty in the little things, with consistency in actions, with words that match the heart. That is how trust grows strong. That is how it lasts. And when you give your trust, it is a sacred gift. It is not just a word. It is a piece of your soul. It is your heart saying, I believe in you. I believe in your honesty. I believe you will protect this gift. And when someone receives that gift, they hold a responsibility to honor it, to protect it, to guard it with truth. Because once betrayed, once broken, the one who trusted may never trust again in the same way. Think about your own life. How many times has your heart been wounded because you trusted someone who did not honor it with truth? And how many times have you been lifted, healed, strengthened by someone who did? That difference, the difference between betrayal and loyalty, comes down to one choice: the choice of truth. When betrayal enters, it teaches us just how fragile trust really is. It teaches us that words without truth are empty, that promises without action are worthless, and that silence when honesty is needed is as cruel as deception itself. But it also teaches us something else. It teaches us the value of truth, the beauty of honesty, the rare power of people who keep their word no matter the cost. Trust is fragile, yes, but that fragility makes it sacred. It makes it something to be handled with care, with respect, with sincerity. And when we choose to honor it with truth, we do not just protect another person's heart, we protect our own soul. Because truth brings peace, truth brings clarity, truth brings freedom. Lies may seem easier in the moment, but they always cost more in the end. So let us remember, to love deeply is to honor trust, and to honor trust is to live in truth. Silence is such a simple thing: no words, no sound, no explanation. And yet, silence can speak louder than any sentence ever could. It is in silence that people hide what they dare not say aloud. It is in silence that truths are buried, waiting for the moment they will break free. Silence is never empty. It carries weight. It carries meaning. It carries truths that are too heavy, too sharp, too dangerous to be spoken. When someone you love grows quiet, it is rarely because there is nothing to say. More often, it is because there is too much. Too much fear, too much guilt, too much truth pressing down on their chest. Silence becomes the shield, the mask, the prison, and while words can deceive, silence has a way of betraying itself. You can hear it in the pauses. You can feel it in the distance. You can sense it in the absence of what should have been spoken. Silence often hides the loudest truths. A partner who avoids eye contact when you ask a question. A friend who changes the subject when a certain name comes up. A child who hides behind closed doors instead of meeting your eyes. Those moments are not empty, they are full. Full of what they do not dare admit. Full of what they think will break you. Full of the truth they cannot bring themselves to reveal. And yet, silence always leaves behind an echo. It creates a space that begs for answers. It makes the heart restless, the mind suspicious, the soul uneasy. You begin to hear what is not being said. You begin to feel what is being hidden. You begin to understand that behind every quiet moment lies a storm waiting to burst. Think about your own life. How many times have you felt it? That tension in the air when someone's silence says more than their words. That ache in your chest when the truth is absent, but its shadow is undeniable. That is the power of silence. It forces you to listen not to what is said, but to what is withheld. Sometimes silence is chosen out of love, to protect someone from pain. Sometimes it is chosen out of fear, to avoid the consequences of truth. And sometimes it is chosen out of betrayal, to cover up what should never have been done. But no matter the reason, silence becomes heavy. It weighs on the one keeping it, and it weighs on the one enduring it. It is not peace. It is pressure. It is not comfort. It is distance. When silence enters a relationship, it creates cracks. Cracks that grow wider with every unanswered question, every avoided conversation, every truth buried deeper beneath the quiet. And though the silence may feel safe for the one keeping it, it becomes suffocating for the one receiving it. Because silence does not heal, it delays. It stretches the wound. It keeps the heart bleeding in uncertainty. And yet, silence cannot last forever. Truth is like water. It will always find a way out. It may seep slowly through small cracks, or it may burst suddenly like a flood, but eventually, it will reveal itself. That is why silence is dangerous. It pretends to protect, but it only builds a higher wall, a harder fall, a deeper wound. There are times when silence is beautiful, when it is chosen as peace, when it is shared as comfort, when it reflects trust that needs no words. But when silence is used to hide, to cover, to bury, it becomes the loudest scream in the room. The quiet tells you everything your ears cannot hear. The absence of truth is its own kind of truth. It is in silence that betrayals are felt before they are spoken. It is in silence that distance begins to grow before anyone admits it. It is in silence that the heart starts to know what the mind does not want to accept. That is why silence is not empty. It is full. Full of answers, full of weight, full of the truth you are not being told. So do not ignore silence. Do not dismiss it as nothing. Look deeper. Listen harder. Pay attention to the moments when words fall away and only quiet remains. Because often that is where you will find the truth. The truth they could not say. The truth they were too afraid to admit. The truth that changes everything. Silence can hurt more than harsh words. Silence can break trust more than arguments. Silence can pierce deeper than anger. Because silence leaves you alone with your thoughts, alone with your doubts, alone with the questions that circle endlessly in your mind. And sometimes the loudest pain is not in what was said, but in what was never spoken. And yet, silence also teaches. It teaches us to pay attention beyond the surface. It teaches us to notice the hidden signs. It teaches us that words are not the only way truth reveals itself. And in those lessons, we grow stronger, wiser, more aware. Silence often hides the loudest truths, and once you understand that, you begin to see the world differently. You begin to feel the weight behind pauses, the meaning in hesitation, the truth in avoidance. And in that awareness, you learn not to be blinded by what is spoken, but to be awakened by what is left unsaid. Betrayal, it is a word that carries a sting so sharp, a wound so deep, that once you feel it, you are never the same again. But betrayal from a stranger is one thing. Painful, yes, but survivable. Betrayal from someone you trusted with your whole heart, with your whole soul, with your deepest secrets, that is a one that shatters the foundation of who you are. It is not just the act itself that destroys you. It is the breaking of faith, the crushing of belief, the tearing apart of something you thought was unshakable. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those we trust most. Why? Because trust is not given lightly. We do not hand our hearts to just anyone. We build trust carefully, piece by piece, day by day. We open doors that we keep shut for the rest of the world. We show our vulnerability, our fears, our dreams. We let them in, believing they will protect what we gave. And when they turn that trust into a weapon, when they choose deception over loyalty, the pain is unlike anything else. It is not just disappointment. It is devastation. It is not just anger. It is heartbreak. It is not just the end of a bond. It is the collapse of a world you thought was safe. Because when the betrayal comes from the person you trusted most, it is not just their truth that breaks. It is your truth, your belief in goodness, your hope in people, your ability to trust again. The sting of betrayal is sharp, but its echo is even worse. You begin to question everything. Was it all a lie? Were the smiles fake? The promises empty, the moments shared just a mask? You replay every memory, every conversation, every detail, looking for signs you missed, wondering how you didn't see it coming. And in that searching, you find yourself lost. Not just in betrayal, but in self-doubt. That is the cruelest part of betrayal. It makes you doubt yourself as much as the betrayer. You start to believe that you were foolish, that you were blind, that you should have known better. You blame yourself for trusting, for giving your heart so freely, for believing that loyalty and honesty still exist in this world. But here's the truth: trust is not weakness. Trust is courage. It takes strength to open your heart, to let someone in, to believe in their goodness. The fault does not lie in the one who trusted. It lies in the one who betrayed. For betrayal is not a reflection of your character, it is a reflection of theirs. Still, the pain lingers. Betrayal by someone close slices through your soul in a way nothing else can. It is not just losing them. It is losing a part of yourself that believed in them. It is losing the version of you that saw the world as safe, that believed in loyalty, that trusted in love without hesitation. And when betrayal comes from family, from friends, from those who share your blood or your history, the wound cuts even deeper. Because we are taught to believe that family will never turn against us, that friends will always stand by us, that love will always protect us. So when they are the ones who break us, it feels unnatural, unbearable, almost impossible to process. Betrayal changes you. It hardens your heart, it sharpens your eyes, it makes you wary of the smiles you once trusted so easily. You learn to question, to pause, to hesitate before giving your heart again, and though that caution may protect you, it also leaves scars because it takes away the innocence of trust you once carried freely. But perhaps the greatest pain of betrayal is not what is lost in others. It is what is lost in yourself. You lose the version of you that believed in forever, the version that believed loyalty was unbreakable, the version that believed love was safe. And rebuilding yourself after betrayal is one of the hardest journeys you will ever face. Yet even in this pain, even in this devastation, there is something to be learned. Because betrayal may break you, but it also reveals truth. It shows you who someone truly is, stripping away the mask they wore. It forces you to see reality, even if it hurts. And in that truth, painful as it may be, lies freedom. But before that freedom comes the storm of grief, of rage, of sorrow, of loneliness. You will cry in silence. You will scream in your heart. You will feel abandoned, discarded, broken. And yet, day by day, you will stand again. Because while betrayal cuts deep, it does not define your worth. It does not erase your strength. It does not destroy the beauty of trust itself. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those we trust most. But even then, it cannot destroy the essence of who we are. Because the ability to trust again, to hope again, to love again, that is the proof of resilience, the evidence of strength, the victory over betrayal itself. Strength does not always roar. It does not always stand tall in the middle of the storm, shouting to the world, "I am unshakable." Sometimes, strength is silent. Sometimes, it is hidden. Sometimes, it is born in the quiet corners of the night, when no one is watching, when the heart is shattered, when the soul feels abandoned. Strength is born in the quiet planning of the broken. Those who have felt the sharp sting of betrayal, those who have walked through the fire of disappointment, those who have stood in the ruins of trust and still found a way to rise. The broken do not gather strength instantly. They bleed first. They weep. They question themselves. They feel the weight of emptiness pressing on their chest. And yet, in that silence, when the world thinks they are defeated, something begins to grow. A spark. A whisper, a voice inside that says, "This is not where it ends. This is not the end of me." Strength is not built in the spotlight. It is built in the shadows. It is built when you sit alone with your pain and decide that it will not define you. It is built when you wipe your own tears, when you take the pieces of your broken heart and quietly begin to fit them back together. It is built when you refuse to let betrayal have the final word in your story. The world often confuses strength with loudness. They think strength is in the shouting, the display, the fire. But real strength, the kind that lasts, is born in silence. It is born in nights when you are wide awake, replaying every wound, every word, every secret that was kept from you. And in that replay, you make a decision, not to let it break you, but to let it shape you. The broken know pain intimately. They know what it means to lose faith, to have their trust shattered, to have their hearts pierced by silence and lies. But because they know pain, they also know endurance. They know how to rise when there is no one left to lift them. They know how to create a plan not in the light of hope, but in the darkness of despair. And those plans, the quiet ones, the unspoken ones, are the strongest of all. Strength is born in the quiet planning of the broken. When no one believes in you, when no one expects you to rise again, when people whisper behind your back that you are finished, that you will never recover, that you will never stand tall again. It is in those moments, in the silence of being underestimated, that true power is forged. Think about it. The strongest trees do not grow in soft soil. They grow in storms, in harsh winds, in unrelenting weather. Their roots dig deep, unseen beneath the surface, while the world above only sees their stillness. That is what strength is like in the broken. The world sees silence, stillness, even weakness. But beneath that, roots are growing, plans are forming, resilience is being built, and when the broken finally rise, they rise differently. They rise not with arrogance, but with wisdom. Not with loudness, but with purpose. Not to prove others wrong, but to prove to themselves that they were never truly defeated. Their strength carries scars, but those scars are proof of survival. Their strength carries silence, but that silence holds the weight of lessons learned. There is something powerful about the quiet resolve of a broken heart. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need validation. It simply moves forward, one step at a time, until the day comes when the same people who doubted, who betrayed, who abandoned, are left in shock at the resilience they never saw coming. Strength is not about never breaking. It is about what you do after you break. It is about how you use the silence, the solitude, the pain to carve a new path. It is about finding power in the very places you thought would destroy you. And when you have been broken, when you have been shattered, when you have been left in the ruins, you carry within you a kind of strength that no one who has not walked that path can ever understand. So when you feel broken, when you feel abandoned, when you feel like the silence is swallowing you whole, remember this. Your strength is not gone. It is being built. It is being born. Right there in your quiet planning, in your whispered prayers, in your silent decisions, in your hidden determination. The world may not see it now, but one day they will. And when they do, they will understand that strength was never absent. It was simply waiting in the silence, waiting to rise. Silence has a language of its own. It does not shout, it does not explain, it does not reason. Yet, within silence lies a weight that words could never carry. Silence can comfort, but it can also cut. It can hold secrets so sharp that they pierce the heart without ever being spoken aloud. Sometimes it is not the words that destroy us, but the silence that surrounds them. We all know this truth deep down. The silence of a room when a question is asked and no one dares to answer. The silence of someone we trusted, who chooses to hide the truth rather than reveal it. The silence of a heart that once was open, now closed, leaving us guessing, doubting, wondering what is being kept from us. That silence, unbroken, deliberate, heavy, is not empty. It is filled with secrets, sharp secrets, that cut deeper than lies ever could. When silence holds secrets, it teaches us the weight of unspoken truths. It reminds us that betrayal is not always in the form of an outright deception. Sometimes it is in what is not said, what is hidden behind closed lips, what is locked away behind guarded eyes. That kind of silence leaves us restless. It makes us question not only the other person, but also ourselves. Did I not deserve the truth? Was I not worthy of honesty? Silence can be cruel because it demands that we interpret it. And in that interpretation, the mind becomes its own enemy. It fills the empty spaces with assumptions, with doubts, with fears. We begin to wonder what is being concealed, why it is being concealed, and whether the silence itself is louder than any confession could be. But here is the painful beauty of it. Silence reveals without speaking. The very act of holding back, of not saying, of avoiding, becomes its own answer. Silence does not hide as well as people think. The broken heart feels it. The betrayed soul senses it. The absence of words can often be the loudest confession of all. When silence holds the sharpest secrets, it forces us into a new kind of strength. We learn to listen not only to words, but to pauses. We learn to read the emptiness between conversations. We learn to trust the unease that rises within us when we know something is left unsaid. And slowly, painfully, we understand that silence itself is a choice to withhold, a choice to protect oneself, or sometimes a choice to wound another. The sharpness of silence cuts differently than spoken betrayal. Words can be denied, twisted, reshaped. But silence leaves nothing to hold on to. It leaves us suspended in a void, desperately searching for clarity that never comes. That is why it hurts so deeply. It keeps us in a state of endless questioning, and in that questioning, we lose pieces of ourselves. And yet, even this pain carries a lesson. Silence teaches us to hear what is not being said. It teaches us to look beyond the surface, to see the truth hiding in the quiet. It makes us sharper, wiser, more discerning. It forces us to understand that not all battles are fought with voices raised. Some are fought with words unspoken, with truths buried in silence. If you have ever been betrayed by silence, you know its power. You know the ache of unanswered questions, the sting of concealed truths, the loneliness of being left in the dark. But you also know the resilience it awakens. Because once you have survived the sharpness of silence, you become unshakable. You no longer need words to sense deceit. You no longer require explanations to see what is hidden. You learn to trust your intuition, your heart, your instincts, because silence taught you how. When silence holds the sharpest secrets, it feels unbearable at first. But in that silence, you gain the power of perception. You discover that the absence of truth is still a truth. That not saying anything can say everything. That silence, though sharp, cannot destroy you unless you let it. So let silence teach you, but do not let it chain you. Let it sharpen your soul, but do not let it harden your heart. And remember, even when silence wounds you, it is shaping you into someone who sees beyond words, someone who understands that the deepest truths are often found in the spaces where no sound exists. Garbage. There are silences that bring comfort. The kind of silence where two souls can sit side by side and not say a word, yet still feel completely understood. Garbage. That silence is peace. But then there is another kind of silence, the one that feels cold, heavy, and suffocating. Garbage. The kind where every unspoken word builds a wall instead of a bridge. That silence is not peace. That silence is distance. At first, you try to tell yourself it's nothing. Garbage. That maybe the quiet is just a passing moment, a season of calm. But deep down, the heart knows. Garbage. It knows when silence shifts from being a resting place to becoming a barrier. The laughter that once filled the air disappears. Garbage. The warmth that once lived in the pauses between words fades away. What remains is a quietness that doesn't soothe. It isolates. Garbage. Distance is not always measured in miles or space. Sometimes it's measured in silence. Two people can sit at the same table, under the same roof, share the same life. Garbage. And yet be worlds apart. Because the silence between them is not the silence of love. It's the silence of things unsaid, of truths avoided, of feelings buried. Garbage. It's the silence that grows when someone chooses not to speak, not to share, not to let you in. And the cruelest part is this. Garbage. Distance created by silence doesn't happen suddenly. It creeps in slowly, unnoticed. At first, it feels like small things. A shorter answer, a delayed response. Garbage, a distracted glance. Then, little by little, the conversations shrink, the pauses stretch longer. Garbage. And one day you realize the silence has become louder than any words could be. The silence has turned into distance. Garbage. That kind of silence hurts because it pretends to be harmless. To anyone looking from the outside, things might seem fine. There are no arguments, no raised voices. Garbage. No open conflict. But inside, the soul feels the gap. It feels the invisible wall growing higher each day. It feels the ache of being alone, even while being together. Garbage. And that ache is heavier than any spoken fight could ever be. But here's the truth hidden in this painful silencer, when silenced to distance. Garbage. It reveals where hearts truly stand. Because people who care will fill the silence. They will bridge it with honesty, with effort, with presence. Garbage. They will not let the distance grow unchecked. But those who let silence linger, who let distance deepen, show us that their investment is not the same as ours. Garbage. It's a hard lesson to learn, but silence as distance is a mirror. It shows us the reality we sometimes don't want to face. Garbage. It shows us who is willing to fight for connection and who is willing to let it slip away. And while that truth may hurt, it is also liberating. Garbage. Because once we see it clearly, we stop living in illusions. We stop confusing silence with peace. We stop mistaking stillness for love. Garbage. The silence of distance also teaches us resilience. It forces us to hear our own voice, to sit with our own thoughts. Garbage. To learn that our worth is not defined by someone else's words, or their lack of them. When someone chooses silence, we learn to choose ourselves. Garbage. When someone creates distance, we learn how to stand closer to our own strength. And maybe that's the hidden power of it all. Garbage. Silence that is distance pushes us toward clarity. It strips away the masks, the pretenses, the excuses. It makes us face reality, even when it is painful. Garbage. And in that reality, we find the courage to decide. Do we keep waiting for words that may never come, or do we walk forward and reclaim our voice? Garbage. The silence was not peace, it was distance. But distance can be the very thing that shows us how strong we truly are. It can remind us that we do not need to beg for words. Garbage. For truth, for love. We can carry ourselves through the quiet, and in doing so, we find a deeper peace. One not built on silence, but on truth. Garbage. Trust is one of the most delicate gifts we give another human being. It is invisible, yet it carries more weight than gold. It is silent. Garbage. Yet it speaks louder than any promise. And when we give our trust, we do it with our whole heart, believing that it will be kept safe, honored, and respected. But trust, garbage, for all its strength is also fragile. It is like a thread, thin, precious, and beautiful. And once that thread is broken, garbage, no matter how carefully you try to tie it back together, it never looks the same. When you first hand someone your trust, it feels pure. There are no doubts, no scars, garbage, no cracks. It is whole. It is like holding a crystal glass, clear and shining, perfect in its form. And because it feels so perfect, garbage, you don't imagine it could ever shatter. You don't imagine that the same hands you entrusted it to could be the ones that drop it. But life teaches us differently. Garbage. When betrayal happens, when lies replace truth, when loyalty is abandoned, trust doesn't just weaken. It breaks. It snaps like a thread pulled too tight. Garbage. And in that moment, the world feels different. You see everything through new eyes. The warmth you once felt becomes cold. The safety you once leaned on becomes shaky. Garbage. The thread that held your bond together is no longer there, and in its place is emptiness. And yes, you can try to mend it. You can tie the thread back together. Garbage. You can weave it again, you can make it look whole from a distance. But if you look closely, the break is always visible. The knot will always be there. Garbage. A reminder of the moment it snapped. The scar never goes away. And no matter how much you want to believe it's the same, deep down, you know it isn't. Garbage. That is why betrayal cuts so deep. Because it doesn't just wound your heart. It changes the way you see trust forever. It teaches you that love, friendship, loyalty, garbage, and family all come with risk. It reminds you that people can make promises, but promises are only as strong as the actions behind them. And when those actions fail, garbage, the damage is not only in the moment, it lingers. But here is where the lesson lies. Trust may be fragile, but its breaking does not mean the end of everything. Garbage. It means the start of clarity. It means the unveiling of truth. Garbage. It means you finally see who is willing to protect that fragile thread and who is careless enough to let it snap. And in that knowing, you find freedom. Garbage. Because broken trust, as painful as it is, gives us a gift, the gift of discernment. It shows us who we can walk with and who we must let go of. Garbage. It forces us to stop living in illusions, to stop giving endless chances to those who never valued the thread in the first place. It teaches us that trust is sacred. Garbage. And not everyone deserves it, and for the one who was betrayed, for the one whose trust was broken, there is growth. The hurt shapes you, yes. The pain lingers, yes. Garbage. But in time it becomes strength. You learn to listen more carefully, to see more clearly, to protect your heart without hardening it. You learn that trust can be rebuilt. Garbage. But only with those themselves worthy through consistency, honesty, and love. Not with words, not with empty apologies, garbage, but with actions that stand the test of time. So, if your trust was broken, remember this: it is not a reflection of your weakness. It is a reflection of their choices. Garbage. You were brave enough to trust. You were strong enough to give something pure. And if someone failed to hold that, garbage, it is not you who is less. It is them who could not rise to the beauty of what they were given. Yes, the thread is fragile. Yes, once broken, it never looks the same. Garbage. but it can become something else. Something wiser, something stronger, something that knows how to recognize the hands that are worthy of holding it. Garbage. And in that transformation you rise, you carry scars, but those scars do not weaken you. They remind you that you have lived, you have trusted, you have survived. Garbage. And you have grown because trust, once broken, teaches the heart to see with both tenderness and wisdom. And though it may never look the same again, garbage, it shapes you into someone who knows the true value of honesty, loyalty, and love. Garbage. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than any voice, when the absence of words echoes more deeply than the sharpest confession. Garbage. Silence is not always emptiness. Sometimes it is the heaviest truth, the unspoken scream, the quiet collapse of everything you thought you knew. And in those moments, garbage, you realize that silence can cut through the heart more than any sentence ever could. Think of the times you waited for an answer. Garbage. You asked a question with hope trembling in your voice, expecting reassurance, expecting honesty, expecting love. But instead of hearing words that could comfort or heal, garbage, you were met with silence, a silence that lingered, heavy, unbearable. That silence was not neutral, it was an answer in itself. Garbage. And perhaps it was the clearest answer of all. Because when people choose not to speak, it is often because they cannot defend their truth. When eyes drop to the floor, garbage. When lips tremble but no words come out, when hesitation fills the air, it tells you everything. Silence becomes the confession they cannot bear to voice. Garbage. Silence becomes the admission they are too afraid to own. Silence becomes the betrayal wrapped in stillness. It is easy to think that silence is weakness, but in reality, garbage, it is one of the strongest weapons life wields. Words can be twisted, words can be sweetened, words can lie, but silence is raw. Silence holds no mask. Garbage. Silence exposes hidden because the lack of response becomes the loudest revelation. And yet silence is not always betrayal. Sometimes it is dignity. Garbage. Sometimes it is wisdom. Sometimes it is the choice to step back rather than lash out. Because there are moments when responding would only deepen the wound. Garbage. When fighting back would only fuel the fire, when explaining yourself would only feed the lies. In those moments, silence becomes strength. Garbage. Silence becomes the shield that protects your peace. Silence becomes the space where healing begins. That is why silence is so powerful. It has two faces. One face is pain. Garbage. The silence of someone who cannot admit their betrayal. The other face is strength. The silence of someone who chooses not to let anger rule their soul. And you, garbage, standing in the middle of it, must learn to read which face is in front of you. In betrayal, silence from the betrayer often tells you the truth you feared. Garbage. It confirms your suspicions without a single word. It breaks your heart without a sound. But in healing, your own silence becomes a choice. A choice to rise above. Garbage. A choice to reclaim your voice by withholding it. A choice to let your strength echo without shouting. Silence carries weight because it forces us to feel. Garbage. Without words to distract us, without explanations to blur the truth, silence makes us sit with the raw reality. It makes us confront the emotions we tried to run from. Garbage. It makes us listen to the whispers of our heart, the cries of our soul, the lessons hidden in the stillness. And though it hurts, garbage, it is in that silence that we often discover who we truly are. You may think that silence means nothing, but remember, silence has ended relationships. Garbage. Silence has revealed truths, silence has brought peace, and silence has built strength. 1,000 words may still leave doubt, but one silence, one moment of stillness, garbage, can tell you exactly where you stand. So, when silence greets you, don't dismiss it. Listen to it, feel its weight, understand its message. Garbage. Because sometimes the silence of another will break your illusions, and sometimes your own silence will save your soul. Both have power. Both shape destiny. Garbage. Both carry more weight than all the words that could have been spoken. This. Revenge is often imagined as loud. People picture shouting, confrontation, storms of anger, and dramatic endings that shake the ground. But the truth is this. The most powerful revenge rarely comes wrapped in noise. The most unforgettable victories are not the ones screamed from rooftops, but the ones carried out in silence. Where quiet strength becomes the sharpest weapon of all. When someone betrays you, when trust is broken, when love is thrown aside like it was never sacred. The first instinct is often to fight back, to prove your worth, to shout your truth until the world hears. But the more you scream, the more energy you give away. The more you fight in chaos, the more you let their betrayal control your spirit. And then, without even realizing it, you lose twice. Once in the betrayal, and again in the aftermath of your reaction. Quiet strength is different. Quiet strength is choosing not to waste your voice on those who never valued your words. Quiet strength is walking away from chaos with your dignity intact. Quiet strength is building yourself so strong, so steady, that your very presence becomes the answer. It is the silence that unsettles them more than shouting ever could. Think of this: when someone expects you to break, and instead you rise without a word, that is revenge. When someone thinks their betrayal will define your ending, but instead you use it as the beginning of your power, that is revenge. When they look for your anger, your weakness, your collapse, but all they find is your calm and your determination, that is revenge. Quiet, unshakable, undeniable revenge. Noise fades quickly, but quiet endurance lingers. People may forget what you shouted, but they will never forget how you stood tall when they expected you to fall. They will never forget that you did not give them the satisfaction of seeing you collapse. They will never forget that their betrayal did not destroy you. It only transformed you. Revenge does not always come in the form of payback. Sometimes it comes in the form of growth. Sometimes it comes in the form of success that speaks for itself. Sometimes it comes in the simple act of refusing to let them control your story any longer. That silence, that peace, that rise, it is louder than any scream. And here is where the true power lies. Quiet strength is not weakness. Quiet strength is not surrender. Quiet strength is discipline. It is control. It is wisdom. It is the choice to fight not with noise, but with presence. It is the decision to let your healing, your peace, your transformation be the very thing that unsettles them. Because there is nothing louder than a heart they thought they broke, beating stronger than ever. So yes, revenge doesn't always need noise. Sometimes it is the silence of a soul at peace. Sometimes it is the calm of someone who no longer cares to prove their worth to those who never saw it. Sometimes it is the steady rise of a person who chooses to build rather than destroy, to grow rather than shrink, to shine rather than hide. Quiet strength is the kind of revenge that doesn't just end the story. It rewrites it. It shows the world that betrayal may hurt, but it cannot define us. It proves that even when the thread of trust snaps, even when words fail, even when silence cuts deep, you still have the power to rise without noise, without chaos, without needing anyone's permission. And in that rise, they will see. They will see that their betrayal was not your end. They will see that their lies could not silence your truth. They will see that the storm they tried to leave you in only made you stronger. And when they see you standing tall, steady, and unshaken, they will realize that sometimes the quietest strength speaks louder than 1,000 roars. There comes a point after every heartbreak, every betrayal, every shattering moment where the pain feels endless. It clings to you like a shadow, wrapping itself around your thoughts, invading your sleep, stealing the light from your days. You replay every word, every lie, every silence, searching for reasons. Searching for clarity, searching for the part of yourself you lost in the process. But healing, true healing, never begins by searching outside of yourself. Healing begins the moment you turn inward and make the quiet, unshakable choice to choose yourself over the pain. Because pain is loud. Pain wants to be the center of your world. It demands attention, it feeds on your memories, it wants you to relive the betrayal again and again. And the longer you let it sit at the head of your table, the more it convinces you that it has power over you. But the truth is, pain only has as much power as you allow. The instant you choose yourself, the instant you whisper, "I matter more than what hurt me," you shift everything. The pain doesn't vanish overnight, but it begins to lose its grip. Choosing yourself over the pain is not about ignoring what happened. It is not about pretending it didn't matter or denying the wound. No. It is about standing in the middle of that wound and saying, "I will not let this define me." It is about looking at the pieces of your broken trust, your broken dreams, your broken heart, and deciding that they are not the end of your story. It is about believing, even in your darkest night, that you still carry light inside of you. Healing is not a straight path. It is messy, it is uneven, it is full of moments when you think you've moved forward only to feel the pain sneak back again. But every time you choose yourself over that pain, every time you remind yourself that you are worthy of peace, worthy of joy, worthy of love, you weaken the hold of that wound. It loses its ability to chain you. Think of it this way: pain wants you to stay in the past. It wants you to keep staring at what was lost. But when you choose yourself, you start looking toward what can still be found. You start seeing the possibilities waiting for you beyond the heartbreak. You start realizing that life did not end with betrayal, it only pushed you toward a new beginning. There is power in this choice. There is power in saying this. I will not chase closure from those who broke me, I will create closure within myself. There is power in saying, I will not let their silence drown me. I will fill my world with my own voice. There is power in saying, I will not keep begging for someone else to choose me, I will choose me. And in that choice, healing breathes. In that choice, the pain begins to fade into the background. In that choice, you discover strength you never knew you had. Because betrayal might have broken your trust, but it does not have to break your spirit. Loss might have taken something from you, but it does not have to take your future. Pain might have touched you, but it does not have to define you. When you choose yourself, you step into a new chapter. A chapter where you carry your scars not as shame, but as proof of your survival. A chapter where you walk not with bitterness, but with wisdom. A chapter where you no longer measure your worth by the love you lost, but by the love you continue to give yourself. Yes, healing takes time. Yes, the pain will whisper again and again, but every time you choose yourself, every time you breathe deeply and say, I matter more than this wound, you take another step forward. And those steps, no matter how small, carry you toward freedom. They carry you toward the version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more alive than the one who first fell. Healing begins the moment you decide that your story is bigger than your heartbreak. It begins when you claim that your life is worth more than the pain that tried to break you. And once you take that step, nothing, not betrayal, not silence, not disappointment, can hold you captive again. There is something powerful about silence. A silence not of defeat, not of fear, but of strength. It is the kind of silence that follows when you stop trying to prove your worth to those who doubted you. The kind of silence that speaks louder than arguments, louder than anger, louder than the endless explanations you once gave to people who never truly listened. The kind of silence that becomes your armor, your sanctuary, and your secret weapon. Because the greatest revenge is not in shouting your pain, not in exposing every betrayal, not in wasting energy trying to make others see what they did to you. No, the greatest revenge is rebuilding yourself in silence. Rising again without warning, growing in places they never expected, shining in ways they thought you never could. It is not about showing them. They are not your goal anymore. It is about reclaiming yourself and letting your life become the answer to every doubt, every betrayal, every scar. Rebuilding in silence means choosing patience over impulsive reactions. It means planting seeds in the soil of your own heart and tending to them quietly. Away from the noise, away from the doubters, away from those who once broke you. It means crafting a new version of yourself, brick by brick, step by step. While the world assumes you've given up, they don't see the hours of self-work. They don't hear the inner battles you're winning. They don't notice the light slowly returning to your eyes, and they don't have to. Because silence protects the sacred. Silence shields you from their curiosity, their gossip, their judgment. In silence, you are free to stumble and rise again without fear of their laughter. In silence, you can fall apart at night and wake up stronger the next day without anyone knowing the storms you weathered. And when the time comes, when your healing has turned into strength, when your brokenness has transformed into unshakable confidence, you won't need to announce it. They will see it. And the silence will make your rise even more undeniable. There is a deep dignity in quiet growth. A quiet victory is often the sweetest one because it is not built on approval, it is not dependent on applause, it is not defined by validation. It is built on you, on your resilience, on your determination to stand again. And when you stand taller than before, not because you want them to see this, but because you refuse to stay on the ground. Remember, people expect you to crumble. They expect you to drown in your grief, to get lost in your bitterness, to spend your days consumed by revenge. But when you do the opposite, when you rebuild in silence, you steal the power they thought they had over you. Your silence unsettles them, your growth confuses them, your strength built away from their gaze leaves them speechless. That is the sweetest form of justice. This doesn't mean you suppress your pain. This doesn't mean you ignore your wounds. It means you honor them privately, you face them with courage. You fight your battles in the quiet corners of your soul, and you emerge with scars that have turned into lessons. Scars that no longer bleed, but shine as reminders of your endurance. And here's the truth: the life you build after betrayal, after heartbreak, after that life becomes the loudest statement you could ever make. Without words, without revenge plots, without proving anything, you live, you rise, you succeed. And that is enough. Because silence paired with growth is unstoppable. It doesn't just heal you, it elevates you. When you rebuild yourself in silence, you teach yourself patience, you teach yourself discipline, you learn how to walk without applause, how to climb without cheering crowds, how to believe in yourself when no one else is watching, and that is when you become unshakable. That is when no betrayal, no rejection, no silence from others can break you again. So let them doubt, let them whisper, let them think you are finished, while they are busy watching the surface. You are building foundations so deep, so steady that nothing can bring you down, and one day, without warning, they will look at you and see a person transformed. A person they can no longer recognize, a person they can no longer control, a person who no longer belongs to their past. That is the beauty of silent rebuilding. It is revenge without bitterness, it is power without noise, it is transformation without explanation. And when you rise, you don't just prove them wrong, you prove yourself right. You prove that no betrayal, no heartbreak, no silence could stop you from becoming whole again. Strength is often misunderstood. People think it's about striking back harder, about shouting louder, about making sure the world knows you were wrong. But the true strength lives in a quieter place. It's not in breaking the ones who broke you. It's not in tearing down those who betrayed you. No, strength is in standing tall and proving that you were never broken to begin with. Think about it. When life throws betrayal your way, when trust is shattered, when hearts are torn apart, the natural instinct is to retaliate, to show them pain equal to what they gave you. But what if the real power is not in giving them a mirror of their cruelty? What if the real power is in showing them that they never had the power to destroy you? That no matter what they did, you are still standing, still breathing, still unshaken at your core. That is where true victory lies. Strength is not in the noise of revenge. It's in the silence of resilience. It's in the smile you wear after nights of tears. It's in the courage to wake up again, to rebuild again, to trust again even when your heart tells you it's safer to stay closed. It's in refusing to let betrayal turn you bitter. It's in refusing to let heartbreak make you hateful. It's in choosing to remain whole even when others tried to break you into pieces. And isn't that the hardest thing to do? To look at those who hurt you and not let them see you collapse. To face the shadows of doubt and still walk forward. To carry scars but refuse to let them define you. This is not weakness. It is the purest form of strength. It is not about proving them wrong with revenge. It is about proving yourself right with endurance. Imagine for a moment the faces of those who doubted you. They expected you to drown. They expected you to crumble. They expected you to give up, to vanish into the silence of despair. But then, slowly you began to rise, not with fury, not with destruction, but with quiet determination. They see you standing again, stronger than before, and suddenly their power dissolves. They cannot touch you anymore, not because you fought them back, but because you chose to never break under their weight. Strength is not measured by how hard you hit, but by how gracefully you carry what was meant to crush you. It's in the dignity of walking away. It's in the courage of letting go. It's in the wisdom of knowing that your peace is more valuable than their downfall. That your healing is more important than their regret. That your story is bigger than their betrayal. The world often glorifies revenge as the ultimate power. But the truth is, revenge still keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. It keeps you chained to the memory, to the anger, to the pain. Real strength cuts that chain. Real strength says, you tried to break me, but I am not yours to break. Real strength whispers, I choose to live, not to linger in the shadows of what you did. Every time you rise from pain without seeking to destroy someone else, you declare a silent victory. Every time you refuse to let bitterness win, you become untouchable. Every time you heal without needing them to apologize, you reclaim your power. And that kind of strength that cannot be taken away. Strength is not in breaking them, because breaking them still leaves you wounded, still leaves you empty. still leaves you entangled in a cycle of pain. True strength is in proving, through the life you rebuild, through the joy you reclaim, through the peace you find within yourself, that you were never broken in the first place. Yes, you may have been bent. Yes, you may have been bruised. Yes, there were nights you thought you couldn't go on, but you are here. You are breathing. You are rising, and that in itself is the loudest proof. Proof that you were never broken beyond repair. Proof that your spirit is stronger than betrayal. Proof that your light cannot be dimmed by the darkness of others. So do not waste your strength on breaking them. Do not waste your fire on burning bridges that no longer serve you. Use that fire to light your own path. Use that strength to lift yourself higher. Use that resilience to inspire those who are walking through their own storms. Because in the end, the greatest form of revenge is not in their downfall, but in your rise. Not in their tears, but in your smile. Not in their regret, but in your peace. And when you live this way, you discover something greater, that strength is not about them at all. It never was. It was always about you. Your courage. Your endurance. Your refusal to let the worst moments define you. That is strength. That is power. That is victory.